Hey guys, thanks for checking out the Angry Physio YouTube page. This week, we're going to talk about a subject that is usually going to bore most people to tears, and that is evidence-based research. Don't turn the channel yet. Stay. I'm going to try to entertain you into learning something today. And to start things off, I'm going to show you a short film that I made. And in order to play this game, you have to change your mindset. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to think of yourself as a healthcare practitioner who, let's just say, just newly minted, knows a lot about how to treat patients. But here's the kicker. When you watch this video that you're about to see, pretend that you know absolutely nothing about American culture. Now, I know you're probably saying, like, what is he? Where is he going with this? You got to think about that when you're watching this video, okay? So it's a short video. I can't think it's more than like a minute long. You are a healthcare practitioner. You are the healthcare practitioner in this video. And you don't know anything about American culture, and you walk into a patient's room. Okay, you got it in your brain? Let's roll it. Good morning. How you doing? I'm Dan. Good to meet you. So why don't we start by just having you tell me what brings you here today and how we can help you with physical therapy. Pull my finger. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What?
Pull it.
What? Why?
Just pull it, please.
You're welcome. So why did I just go through all the trouble to do that? I'll tell you why. That is the perfect example that illustrates what a case study is. And since we're talking about evidence-based research, see, I've tricked you into being hopefully mildly entertained so that you can actually start thinking about this stuff. That could be construed as a case study. And let's take a look at why, and let's take a look at the levels of research and see how this all applies to this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a few minutes here and let's look at the hierarchy of research, because this is pretty important here if we take this all into perspective. Here we have a list of what is considered widely to be the hierarchy of research. It may differ a little bit from discipline to discipline, but this is basically what you're going to see. And if you look at the top of the list, which is considered like the most rigorous and the most legit type of research, we have systematic reviews and we have randomized control trials, those types of studies. Down at the bottom, we have here at number 5, we have the case study, which is what we're talking about today. And then right below that, we have what I would basically term an expert's opinion. And we all know that experts' opinions should be low on the scale, because I don't want to get political, but just take a look around. There's tons of evidence that people's opinions don't really amount to a hill of beans. So let's also take a minute to look specifically at some reasons why case studies maybe aren't the strongest level of research. For point number 1 here, for one thing, it's usually only one person or one subject. And sometimes if you read a scientific study, especially one that relates to health, you will sometimes see that the N value of that is 1. And what N just means is a number of participants. So if the N value is 1, it's only one person. So normally a hypothesis becomes more credible when it's reproducible or when it's seen more widely. And you're not really getting that with this. So point number 2, case studies rely on the researcher's interpretation of the data. So that means everybody who just watched this short film, which I said before should be nominated for an Oscar, knows that there is a far more plausible explanation for what the clinician saw. That's why I did this film, because it's easy to think of a case study and the flaws of a case study from this perspective. That person probably did not have an involuntary loss of motor control in the sphincter, but rather this person is probably just messing around. And if you think, however, as the healthcare provider, if you knew nothing about our culture or American culture, how would you take that? If you don't know anything about American culture, you might be biased into thinking that you just discovered something huge by seeing that. Point number 3, case studies are hard to generalize or apply to larger groups of subjects. Kind of makes sense. If it was applicable to more people, perhaps the healthcare practitioner there would have seen that exact thing happen lots of times before in real medical settings. Point number 4, they're not scientifically rigorous. They're usually kind of simple. All that the researcher had to go with here to see the result was pulling the finger, and we really don't know anything else about what's going on. So it leaves a lot of room for interpretation, and not a lot of stuff was controlled. I think it's pretty safe to say that this case study isn't going anywhere. But let's look at the positive side of the case studies for a minute and maybe use a more solid example. So on the upside, one of the cool things about case studies is that they're very often a starting point for future research. And we see a lot of case studies out there, and some of them kind of burgeon into things that are really societally important. And I was thinking about what would be a good example of the case study that perhaps started as a case study and became something way more legit and way more important. Let's take the example of Dr. Heimlich and the Heimlich maneuver. Many of you all know that I believe in the 1970s, this thoracic surgeon, Dr. Heimlich, either observed or figured out through an N value of 1 of testing one subject that when you force air up through the abdomen and force it out through the mouth, with a quick movement of the fist, it can dislodge an object. And I believe he tested this out as a case study on a dog, I believe, or an animal. And he saw that, hey, this might actually work. This might be something. So this was obviously presented. And decades later, the Heimlich maneuver has probably saved millions of lives in this world. The net conclusion here is that case studies are kind of a weak overall level of research in terms of their power and their legitimacy, but don't discount them. They might give you good ideas, and there may be something else that can be tested, or it could be tested in a more rigorous manner, which may lead to something better. So hopefully now, when you start to look at research, and if you ever want to look at research articles, this should give you a little bit of guidance to try to kind of separate out what type of stuff you're looking at and how legit the stuff that you're looking at actually is. So we can tackle many more of these subjects in future episodes here on YouTube. Happy to do so. Feel free to drop me a line, drop me a comment, subscribe, rate, review, get the little reminders, all that stuff over there. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the Angry Physio, and don't do anything stupid, because I know you are.